Tanisha Harper took 12 steps across a sunlit courtyard in Clearwater, Florida. 12 steps to defend her children. 12 steps that would be her last. Behind her, two small voices called out, "Mama, don't go." But she kept walking, shoulders squared, determined to do what any parent would do: protect her babies. She knocked on that door, expecting a conversation. What she got was a bullet to the chest and a gravestone. This is the story of how standing up for your kids can cost you everything, and how one mother's final act of love became a battle cry for justice. If you've ever had to be the shield between your children and the cruelty of this world, you need to hear what happened next. Tanisha Harper wasn't supposed to die at 36. She was supposed to see her daughter Amara graduate high school. She was supposed to teach her son Marcus how to drive. She was supposed to grow old, spoil grandkids, finally take that vacation to Jamaica she'd been saving for since 2019. Instead, she worked double shifts at Clearwater Memorial as a nursing aide, the kind of job where you hold strangers' hands while they take their last breaths, where you clean up messes without complaint, where exhaustion lives in your bones, but you show up anyway because people depend on you. Tanisha clocked out at 7 a.m. after night shifts and still made it home in time to braid Amara's hair for school. She packed lunches with little notes tucked inside. "You're my sunshine and make today amazing." Her neighbors loved her. She was a woman who brought plates of food when someone was sick, who let kids play in her tiny yard, who never missed paying her rent even when money was so tight she skipped meals to make sure Marcus and Amara ate first. She had a laugh that made people stop and smile, this rich, uninhibited sound that filled rooms. Sunday mornings meant church and then the park, where she'd push Amara on the swings until her arms ached while Marcus showed off on the monkey bars. Tanisha wasn't perfect. She'd been through a rough divorce. She struggled with anxiety. Some months, choosing between medicine and groceries was a real decision. But she was fighting, always fighting, to build something stable for her kids in a world that didn't make it easy. And she was fiercely protective. Touch her children, and you'd see a side of Tanisha that didn't back down. But here's the thing everyone who knew her will tell you. Protective didn't mean violent. It meant she'd show up, speak up, and demand respect, with words, not fists. That's exactly what she planned to do that Sunday evening in May. She had no idea she was walking toward her own execution. It started with children's tears, the kind that come from confusion more than pain, when a kid can't understand why an adult would be cruel for no reason. Marcus burst through the apartment door first, 7 years old with scraped knees and grass stains on his shorts, his face crumpled and wet. Right behind him came Amara, 9, trying to be brave but her bottom lip trembling. They'd been playing the shared courtyard, nothing rowdy, just tossing a ball, laughing the way kids do when summer's coming and school's almost out. Then Kelly Grant appeared at her fence line, like she'd been waiting for an excuse. She snatched the ball mid-bounce, held it out of reach when Marcus asked for it back, and according to both children, started yelling, called them brats. So they were noisy little thugs who didn't belong here. Told them to go back where they came from, a phrase that landed like a slap, because where exactly was a 7-year-old supposed to go except home to his mother? Marcus tried to grab their ball. Kelly threw it over the fence into the retention pond. Then she grabbed Amara's jump rope and did the same thing. She said, "We were bad kids." Amara whispered to Tanisha, her small hand shaking. She said mean things, Mama, really mean things. Tanisha felt that familiar heat rise in her chest. The one every parent knows, that protective instinct that turns you into a warrior when someone hurts your baby. But she breathed, counted to 10 like her therapist taught her. She wasn't going to yell. She wasn't going to curse. She was going to handle this like a reasonable adult, having a reasonable conversation with another adult. "Stay here," she told the kids, kissing both their foreheads. "I'm going to talk to her, okay? Just talk. It's going to be fine." Marcus grabbed her hand. "Don't go, Mama." She smiled at him. That smile that said everything's going to be okay because I'm here. "I'll be right back, baby. 2 minutes." Have you ever had to defend your children from someone who should have known better? Have you ever had to be the calm voice when all you want to do is scream? Drop your story in the comments, because what Tanisha did next was what thousands of parents do every single day. She chose communication over confrontation. She chose dignity over rage. She chose wrong, and it killed her. The courtyard of Magnolia Heights Apartments wasn't big, maybe 50 yards from Tanisha's door to Kelly Grant's. Tanisha crossed it slowly, rehearsing words in her head. Stay calm. Be respectful. Just ask her to leave the kids alone. That's it. The sun was starting to set, casting long shadows across the cracked pavement. A couple of neighbors were outside, Mrs. Chin watering plants on her balcony, Mr. Davis washing his car, teenagers skateboarding near the mailboxes. Normal Sunday sounds. Laughter, distant music, the hum of air conditioners. Tanisha knocked on Kelly's door. 3 firm knocks. Not aggressive, purposeful. The door opened fast, like Kelly had been waiting. She stood in the doorway, arms crossed, eyes already hard. No greeting. No, can I help you? Just silence loaded with hostility. Hey! Tanisha started, keeping her voice level. I'm Tanisha from 4B. I think there was a misunderstanding with the kids earlier. Your kids were being disrespectful. Kelly cut her off, running around screaming, throwing things. They were playing. Tanisha said, still calm but firmer now, and taking their toys and calling them names. That's not okay. They're children. If there's a problem, you talk to me, not them. What happened next depends on who you ask. Kelly's version, the one she'd repeat to police, to lawyers, to anyone who'd listen, went like this. Tanisha became aggressive and threatening, stepped toward her in a menacing way, refused to leave when asked, made her feel in immediate danger for her life. But here's what the witnesses saw, what Mrs. Chen told police, what Mr. Davis testified to in court, what the teenagers wrote in statements. Tanisha never raised her voice. She stood on the walkway, not even on Kelly's doorstep. Her hands were visible, empty, one in her pocket, the other gesturing as she spoke. She wasn't yelling. She wasn't advancing. She was talking. Kelly was the one escalating. Her voice got louder. She called Tanisha a word that made Mrs. Chin gasp from 2 balconies away. She told Tanisha she didn't belong in this neighborhood, said she was typical and exactly what's wrong with this place. And then Kelly stepped back inside her apartment. For exactly 4 seconds, there was silence. Tanisha turned slightly, maybe thinking the conversation was over, maybe about to walk away. Mr. Davis would later say he thought it was done. He'd gone back to scrubbing his hubcaps. Then the door opened again. This time, Kelly had a gun. The shot cracked through the courtyard like thunder. A sound so loud and wrong that for a moment, everyone froze. Birds scattered from trees. The teenagers' skateboard clattered to the ground. Mrs. Chin dropped her watering can. Tanisha staggered backward, hand going to her chest, eyes wide with shock and confusion. She tried to say something. Witnesses disagree on whether words came out or just a gasp, and then her knees buckled. She hit the pavement hard. From 50 yards away, 2 small voices started screaming, Mama, Mama, Mama. Marcus and Amara ran across that courtyard faster than children should ever have to run, their world shattering with every step. They reached their mother as Mr. Davis was already on the phone with 911, as Mrs. Chin was running down the stairs, as Kelly Grant stood in her doorway with the gun still in her hand, saying 5 words over and over. I feared for my life. Tanisha Harper bled out on warm concrete, while her children begged her to wake up. She was pronounced dead 17 minutes later. The bullet had pierced her heart. She never even got to finish her sentence. The police arrived within 6 minutes, an unusually fast response time for that part of Clearwater. What happened next would become the subject of intense scrutiny and outrage. Kelly Grant was questioned at the scene, not handcuffed, not arrested. She gave her statement standing in her own doorway, while Tanisha's body was still on the ground 20 feet away, covered with a yellow tarp. Officers nodded as Kelly spoke, took notes, called in as a possible self-defense situation. Meanwhile, Marcus and Amara were being held back by neighbors, screaming and sobbing, trying to reach their mother. A female officer finally took them aside, but the kids would later describe feeling like they were in trouble, like they'd done something wrong by watching their mother die. Within an hour, crime scene tape went up. Within 2 hours, neighbors started gathering. By nightfall, someone had placed flowers where Tanisha fell. By midnight, there were candles. By sunrise Monday, the memorial stretched 15 feet wide. Flowers, stuffed animals, handwritten notes, and a poster board with Tanisha's face printed from Facebook, smiling in her nursing scrubs with the words, "She just wanted to protect her kids." Tanisha's cousin Jasmine arrived from Tampa to take Marcus and Amara. The children were catatonic. They'd stop crying, stop talking, just stare at nothing while adults whispered around them. A neighbor who'd seen everything sat them down gently and tried to explain that sometimes bad things happen to good people for no reason. But how do you explain that to a 7-year-old who watched his mother get murdered for knocking on a door? By Monday afternoon, a local activist group had organized. By Monday evening, 50 people marched through Magnolia Heights chanting Tanisha's name. By Tuesday, the story hit local news. By Wednesday, it was national. Hashtag Justice for Tanisha started trending. The video someone took on their phone. Shaky footage starting after the gunshot, but catching Kelly's words, "I feared for my life," clear as day, went viral. Legal experts appeared on cable news debating Florida's Stand Your Ground law. Talking heads argued over whether Tanisha had been aggressive. The usual script played out. Divide the victim into someone worthy of sympathy or someone who should have known better. But the community knew. Clearwater knew. Every single neighbor who'd watched it happen knew the truth. Tanisha Harper was murdered for being a black mother who dared to advocate for her children. And Kelly Grant walked free. For now, Florida's Stand Your Ground law is deceptively simple. If you reasonably believe you're in imminent danger of death or great bodily harm, you can use deadly force to defend yourself, with no duty to retreat, even in public spaces. Reasonably believe. That's where the whole thing falls apart. Because here's what the data shows. Stand your ground defenses succeed significantly more often when the shooter is white and the victim is black. When the races are reversed, the success rate plummets. The law that's supposed to protect people defending themselves has been weaponized, over and over, to protect killers who felt threatened by black bodies simply existing in their space. Kelly Grant, defense attorney, a silver-haired man named Robert Kessler, who specialized in self-defense cases, immediately invoked Stand Your Ground. He filed a motion for immunity from prosecution, arguing that Kelly had acted in reasonable fear for her life and therefore couldn't even be charged with a crime, let alone tried. The preliminary hearing was excruciating. Kessler painted Tanisha as aggressive, intimidating, threatening. He mentioned her height, 5'8", as if being tall was menacing. He brought up her tone, even though witnesses said she'd been calm. He showed a photo of Tanisha from a birthday party where she was laughing with a drink in her hand, suggesting she had a pattern of volatile behavior based on literally nothing. He never mentioned that Tanisha was unarmed, never addressed that she'd been standing 10 feet away, never acknowledged that witnesses contradicted every part of Kelly's story. But he hammered one point over and over. Kelly Grant felt afraid, and under Florida law, her feelings mattered more than Tanisha's life. Jasmine Harper, now raising Marcus and Amara, while working 2 jobs of her own, showed up to every court date. So did dozens of community members. They wore shirts with Tanisha's face. They held signs. Stand your ground should not mean legal lynching. The prosecution fought back. They called witnesses. Mrs. Chin testified, her voice shaking, that she'd seen the whole thing, and Tanisha had been respectful and calm. Mr. Davis said the same. The teenagers confirmed Tanisha never made a threatening move. The defense attacked them all, suggested they were biased, implied they hadn't really seen what they thought they saw. Maybe they were mistaken. Maybe they were lying to support a narrative. Do you think Stand Your Ground laws are being used fairly? Or do you think they're protecting killers instead of victims? Let us know in the comments, because this case exposed what a lot of people already knew. The law works differently depending on who you are. After 3 months of legal maneuvering, the judge denied Kelly's motion for immunity. The case would go to trial. Kelly's team appealed. It took another 4 months. The whole time, Marcus and Amara lived with the knowledge that their mother's killer was free, walking around, living her life, while they went to therapy twice a week trying to understand why Mama wasn't coming home. Finally, 14 months after Tanisha died, the trial began. The trial lasted 8 days. The prosecution presented a clear narrative. Kelly Grant murdered an unarmed woman in a moment of racial hostility disguised as self-defense. They showed the crime scene photos, played the 911 call where you could hear children screaming in the background, walked the jury through witness testimony that obliterated Kelly's version of events. The defense stuck to their story. Kelly feared for her life. Maybe she overreacted, but she believed she was in danger, and that's all that matters under the law. On day 6, they put Kelly on the stand. She cried, said she'd been terrified, said Tanisha looked angry, and she'd acted on instinct, said she wished things had gone differently, but insisted she'd had no choice. On day 7, they played the race card openly. Kessler suggested that there had been tension in the neighborhood, that Kelly had felt unsafe for weeks, that certain people had made her uncomfortable. He never said black people. He didn't have to. The jury heard what he meant. On day 8, closing arguments. Jasmine sat in the front row with Tanisha's mother, both of them holding hands so tight their knuckles were white. The jury deliberated for 11 hours. When they came back, the courtroom was packed, standing room only, with overflow crowds outside. Marcus and Amara weren't there. Jasmine had decided they'd been through enough, but they were watching at home with a child psychologist present. The verdict, guilty. Manslaughter, not murder. The jury bought that Kelly hadn't planned to kill Tanisha, even though she'd gone back inside to get a gun. But manslaughter, a recognition that Kelly had killed someone unlawfully, that her fear didn't justify taking a life. Sentencing came 3 weeks later. 12 years. 12 years for taking a mother from her children. 12 years for a murder disguised as self-defense. 12 years that would never be enough. Jasmine wept. The courtroom erupted in mixed reactions. Some people shouting justice. Others crying that it wasn't enough, that Tanisha was still gone and 12 years couldn't bring her back. Kelly showed no emotion as she was led away in handcuffs. Today, Marcus is 9 and Amara is 11. They live with Jasmine, who loves them fiercely, but will tell you she can't replace their mother. They go to therapy. They struggle in school sometimes. They have nightmares. But they also visit a memorial that still stands at Magnolia Heights, maintained by neighbors who refuse to let Tanisha's story fade. Someone replaces the flowers every week. The candles are always lit, and the sign, handmade, laminated to survive Florida's brutal weather, still reads, "She protected U.S." On what would have been Tanisha's 38th birthday, over 200 people gathered at that spot. They told stories. They said her name. They promised her children they wouldn't forget. The case changed things, slowly. Florida didn't repeal Stand Your Ground, but prosecutors started scrutinizing these cases more carefully. Training programs on racial bias in self-defense claims became mandatory in some counties. It wasn't enough. It's never enough. But it was something. Tanisha's name joined a long, heartbreaking list. Another hashtag. Another viral story. Another example of what happens when prejudice gets a badge of legal immunity. But to Marcus and Amara, she's not a hashtag. She's Mama, the one who made the best pancakes, who sang off-key in the car, who worked impossible hours so they could have birthday parties and Christmas presents, who loved them so much that she walked across the courtyard to defend them, knowing it might end badly, but doing it anyway, because that's what mothers do. They carry her with them. In Amara's determination to become a lawyer, in Marcus's habit of standing up for kids being bullied at school, in the way they both signed card to Jasmine, "Love you to the moon and back," the same phrase Tanisha used to say while tucking them in at night. There's a question that haunts everyone who knows this story. What if Tanisha had just stayed inside? What if she let it go, let her kids cry it out, let Kelly get away with being cruel? Would she still be alive? Probably. But would she still be Tanisha? Because here's what we know about her. She showed up for her patients dying alone in hospital rooms, for her neighbors who needed help, for her children who needed a voice. She showed up even when she was tired, even when it was hard, even when the world made it dangerous to be a black woman who refused to shrink. She knocked on that door because she believed in something radical, that her children deserved respect, that their dignity mattered, that a conversation could fix things. She died believing in the power of words, standing unarmed in the fading sunlight, trying to build a gentler world for her babies. And Kelly Grant took that from her with one bullet and 3 words: I fear for my life. How many more Tanishas are we going to lose before we admit that stand your ground has become stand your bigotry? How many more children are going to grow up without their mothers because someone felt threatened by their very existence? If this story moved you, if it made you angry, made you sad, made you think, then do something with that feeling. Share Tanisha's story. Say her name. Make sure Marcus and Amara grow up knowing their mother's death meant something. Change something mattered. Hit that subscribe button if you want more stories that refuse to look away from injustice. Drop a dove in the comments for Tanisha and every parent who just wanted their kids to be safe. Let us know. Have you ever had to stand up for your children against someone who should have known better? Because at the end of the day, this isn't just Tanisha's story. It's the story of every mother who's ever put her body between her children and cruelty. It's the story of every person who's ever knocked on a door believing in justice and found a gun instead. Tanisha Harper walked 12 steps to protect her babies. She never made it back. But her children wake up every morning knowing this. Their mother loved them enough to die defending them. And that love, fierce, unshakable, eternal, is the one thing no bullet could ever kill. Rest in power, Tanisha. Your kids are going to be okay. We'll make sure of it.